warm welcome to Ritu and Amit. Today's session is titled A Career with Purpose, empowering you to engage with the social sector. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about ILSS and really why we do what we do. And when we began in 2018, there was a seminal report by Britspan that really talked about the lack of a leadership bench in the sector. And it was startling. It was a report done by talking to more than 250 nonprofits. And some of the really startling sort of results were that 97% of the nonprofits believe it's vital for them to invest in the leadership talent to be successful. More than 53% of the nonprofits do not have senior leaders equipped to lead them in the absence of their current leader, founder, very founder-driven sector. 40% of the NGOs struggle to attract senior leadership talent. So a sector that is solving some of the most complex issues in the country, really needs to be strengthened by building a leadership bench that is, of course, committed and capable. And of course, the end objective is to achieve sustainable development goals. So that was the genesis of ILSS. That's how we began with the leadership program. And I'm going to talk with the two leaders sitting here with me. This is our vision to build India's finest institution for leadership development for the social sector and to train and develop the best talent to lead and serve. We do both upskilling within the sector of leaders, but also bringing in transfusion, like a transfusion of leadership into the sector, which is the corporate, the corporate transitions that we look for. Because, when you look at things like knowledge, skills, and attitude, while knowledge of the sector may not be there, we are really counting on the skills, to be able to build teams, run big businesses. Those are important skill sets for the sector. And of course, attitude is something mindset is something we work with through our programs. So really quickly, this is our approach. We want to, of course, infuse talent, transform quality of talent, and of course, accelerate impact. And this program has, it's had 16 editions so far, more than 330 senior corporate leaders gone through the program. Many have moved into the development sector, and I find them embedded everywhere now, and I love that. So that's in a nutshell about the ILSS leadership program. Of course, the idea is to develop competencies, give you a perspective, help you with your career support if you're looking to transition, or in any way if you want to engage, we want to support that journey. And it's a strong network. So without any further ado, can we begin with just introducing Amit? Amit is the CEO of the Nudge Institute. In this role, he's responsible for various horizontal functions: finance, strategy, people and culture, impact technology. Amit has over 2 decades of global experience in strategy, transformation, and business finance. I'm going to spend some time talking to Amit about, his journey and how it's been on this side, but also what led to him sort of coming here. What was he thinking? How was he thinking about it? What were his concerns, etc. Let me talk here. Ritu has been actually one of the veterans from the, she was in the program, I think cohort 2, which was like in 2018. Ex-director core team member at Piramal Foundation, where she led partnerships with state governments, corporates, entrepreneurs. Ritu is also board member to several boards, nonprofit boards. She was also in the past, heading a COO at Teach for India, as well as heading corporate partnerships at Charities Aid Foundation. In her Pichle Janam Kahi, she was at Alcatel-Lucent solving large-scale business problems, covering new product launches. So welcome, Ritu and Amit. So delighted to have you all here with us. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us and to people who are interested in exploring the development sector. So I'm going to start with you, Amit.
Okay.
ये कीड़ा आपका ये मतलब ये are people born with this कि ये कुछ होने लगता है आपके पास, when did this start? When did this thing to, because it's not normal, right? It doesn't happen to everyone. The corporate sector, people get caught in what they're doing and can go through their life like that. What was it for you? When did you start feeling like I want to explore this?
Yeah, Anu, I think it was a long winding road for me. It took me more than 3 years to get to this point. It started with me getting bored with my career at Nokia. So the first port of call was not social sector. First of call was an executive coach. Yeah, so to figure out that what do I do with my midlife? So after a few experimentation and so on, I started exploring social sector first through SVP. Through SVP, I came to know about ILSS. ILSS accelerated my journey, and I thought, okay, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's how it happened.
And also tell us a little bit about your role at Nudge, because Nudge is one of those organizations that skyrocketed. I mean, not even a decade old, came out of nowhere, has this rocket ship head called Atul Satija, and it's just like a phenomenal story. So, what is your role at Nudge, at the Nudge Institute?
Sure. So the Nudge Institute, as you said, it's an 8-year-old organization, and we are working towards poverty eradication. Vision is that we want to make India a poverty-free country by the time India turns 100 years old as an independent country. Uh, Now, yes, it has grown very rapidly, and supporters like you and funders and so on have been very kind. We'd like to operate like uh, strategic impatience of a Silicon Valley startup. Yeah, so my role essentially is enabling different programs in terms of making them tech first. Yeah, so that they can scale, also providing independent M&E measure and evaluation kind of support, not so much for external world, but for our own internal compass. Yeah. So M&E is not a rear view mirror, so to speak. It's a navigation tool for those programs. So that's number two. Number three, Anu, nobody knows it better than you that attracting talent in the sector is very, very challenging, and retaining them is equally challenging. So that's where people and culture function comes into play. So that's also something I take care of. Then finance is very, very tricky in this sector. So finance is another horizontal function, and lastly, long-term strategy of the organization. So these are some of the functions I take care of. So idea is that we have a leader for go-to-market functions. We have CEOs for different centers, which have programs. And then we have a COO who is working with all these leaders to help them achieve their goals.
Wow, that's a big portfolio, Amit. And I'm going to come back to you in a bit on how is this whole experience been. But just quickly, how big is it? How many employees at NAT? Just to get a perspective of how big is the organization?
It's about 380 people, half of them on the ground working on direct implementation program, and half of them here in Bangalore.
And how many states are you working at? Because I know you're headquartered in Bangalore.
So we are headquartered in Bangalore, yes. Some of the programs in 8 states. So I'll say that in total 8, very quickly it will double the way it is going right now.
Yes, no doubt. I mean, the nudge is, like I said, it's a spaceship or a space rocket. So thank you, Amit. Coming to you, Ritu, your journey, it's just been wonderful. I'd like to hear from you about your work at Piramal Foundation. How was that for you from the corporate world? I know that you were at Teach for India and at Charities Aid, but because Piramal was the work you've done in the last few years, what was the work you did at Piramal? Could you share a little bit about that? And then, I'll ask you some follow-up questions on that.
Yeah. Thanks, Anu, and thanks for inviting. Glad to be here. So at Piramal, basically Piramal works with state governments, more than around 20 states, to say how do you improve the public service delivery of education, health, and ideally water. So you actually just become a catalyst with each of these ministries, whether it's health, education, or water, and ensure in a very simplistic way, like the state I managed, if they have a 10,000 crore budget, How do you ensure each penny of that 10,000 crore budget is doing what it's supposed to do? So you become that catalyst organization in terms of building that systems lens to say, how do you bring in governance, process, tools, new thinking, and build the government machinery to operate? But really, our experience is that the government knows how to do it. There are some roadblocks. So if you just become that catalyst, you hold those spaces and you just navigate that over years, the transition starts to happen. And then more and more partners come in. So my role, so out of these states, I was part of, Piramal is divided into about 6 verticals. Each vertical is run by 5 or 6 senior leaders, or as they call co-team members or partners. And I was one of the partners for the education vertical. Each partner leads 1 or 2 states. I led 3 states for Piramal for education systems change. So Jharkhand, Assam, and Haryana. So absolutely wonderful experience, beautiful team, highly intellectually stimulating for me, challenging. But when you're crying, they'll hug you as well. So I actually just got everything that I was looking for in that. And of course, the scale is very, very exciting. We are out. I mean, if you will want to know, as I'm seeing that, it's a 3,000 people organization now, has grown substantially, 30 senior leaders. So it's really at an exciting time in the last 5-6 years, and the growth has been
Yeah,
phenomenal.
no, absolutely. And it's for you personally, Ritu, coming from the corporate world and now working with government, state government, what was that? I mean, what really did you learn to sort of learn? And what did you unlearn? Or, we talk about unlearn, learn, relearn, all that. But really, what was that experience? Because
So it comes with the challenges, Anu. There is no doubt about that. Corporate world comes with its experience, some luxuries to say the least. And government sector comes with its challenges. But I must say, I have met very, very inspiring bureaucrats and even politicians. So it's been on their side. You realize how little you know and how little what you read is not the full reality. So it's and it's quite the problems that they're trying to solve are very complex. So you start to build a lot of humility over a period of time, even if you start with that high horse that everybody is not doing their job and it just doesn't work. Very quickly you realize, at least for me, and I know of many people, you develop a lot of humility in what conditions and what changes they are able to make, rather than seeing what they're not able to do. And for me, my journey, actually, I feel working in the telecom space and then moving into Piramal, which is very systemic lens, it almost felt like after a few years, I was home, and everything I was doing at Lucent felt like I was doing it for this reason. Because, you work systems, you work complex networks, you work matrix organizations, nobody reported to you, but you were able to bring things together. It was never linear. There are multiple partners working towards one goal. It was like I was home. I was suddenly home. Everybody was bogged down. That person doesn't report to me. How will we do a project? And suddenly I was like, oh my God, this is my world. So I think it's been very, very exciting. It is complex, but I think I'm being very inspired and made me a lot more humble working with the government machineries as well.
So tell me, what are the myths and perceptions you came with, if you can remember, when you first
you made me
what were those things that you had that notion of? Clearly you were interested, because you were committed to trying to be here.
Yeah. So I think
what's the notions in your head?
Yeah, one of the big notions I think in my own head, let me just speak for myself, is that you come from a little bit higher moral ground. You're leaving something and you're coming out to do something good, right? So one, you are yourself in a higher moral ground, and you're also expecting that this is a world which is trying to do good. So hence everybody will be very good. There's a romanticism around it, but it's a career. It's people coming together, solving problems, and they are human. There is gossip, there is bureaucracy, there is Machiavelli is in action, resources are even more limited. So it's actually heightened. People are so connected to the theory of change. The egos are actually even bigger because there's no one thing like money which is driving you. You are on that good. So I think those were the myths which, even for myself, they start to dilute over a period of time. It's I'm doing it by my choice. As you started to say, something was transforming at me. And I thought I want to do good, but there was something that was triggering in my head, which I was not getting in wherever I was, that I made the change. But it takes a little bit of that journey to realize that it's something me, and there's a lot of reflection that happens. And to realize that people are people. And it is a similar world trying to do something different.
Interesting. Amit, for you, it's been a newer transition. Ritu transitioned several years ago. Early thoughts on, what are realistically speaking, because while ILSS, we do spend time trying to say mindset shift, it'll be slower, patience, you need, humility, listenability. But in reality, what was it that were some of the things that one has to navigate sooner rather than later? I call it the un-honeymoon period, because those 6 months,
Yes.
whatever it is, it's a challenge. However,
I like that un-honeymoon period. I'll use that. Yeah, I like
time and time again from all the various people who've transitioned. It's challenging. But what is, what are the some things, that nuances that one doesn't realize, but it's the way things
definitely. Yeah. So unlike Ritu, I'm still a trainee in social sector. So see, many things, it's at various layers and degrees, Anu. Yeah. So let me start with the somewhat easy bits. Yeah. We spend a lot of time when we are transitioning that, you'll take a salary cut, you'll not, have all those travel perks when you're in social sector and so on and so forth. And it's going to be very tough. Honestly, I did not find that tough at all. Yeah. So that's one. So that was actually a myth, which, my expectations were so low that I was pleasantly surprised with the quality. Second is technicalities. So I was given the responsibility of impact hub, for instance. Yeah. So, first couple of weeks, TOC, LFAs, FGDs, what the hell are you talking about? That glossary of words, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Similarly, so many great organizations working in the country and abroad, and you hear names of individuals and organizations, and you feel, it has been long time since I felt so lost and stupid, so that I have no idea what's going on. So that's one level, right? So it starts to settle in, not because you understand everything. You understand that everybody understands that you will not understand everything, and that's okay.
Well,
so so that's one level, right? The second is, you know, uh, I was sensitized about the fact that it's a high empathy work environment, right? Uh, so one comes into the sector and double clicks on that, then realizes what does it mean. Working with people in high empathy environment, they are coming to the sector because of some personal reason, some personal connect. And that upfront investment in understanding and knowing people beyond a point in corporate sector seems like a drag. You do as much as is minimum required to get the job done, and you get to the numbers and targets and so on and so forth. This is an investment in social sector whose ROI in the long run is very, very high. Yeah, so that investment is needed initially, and I think, at least me coming from corporate sector, there's a bit of learning there that it is required, necessary. You need to slow down and talk to people, not only about their work, about them as people. Uh, uh, Third and last I'll say is that I had this romantic vision, like Ritu said, that yeah, I'll go to office every day, I'll come back happy and elated that I'm doing something good in the world. It has its daily frustrations and challenges, and once you are in the daily grind, it does just feels like any other job in that sense.
The job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is so well said and so resonates, Amit. But for the people that are listening in today, the social sector is a very vast sort of word, and it feels very daunting. And then I also often meet people who will say, how best can I contribute? How do I come from the ad agency world. I mean, what am I going to do here? I don't understand education. So how would you respond? And this question is really for both of you on how to really approach this, because there are strong leverageable skills, but often people, it's such a unknown that people are not quite sure. So how would you advise them to approach, the sector and opportunities, etc.? What would be the approach you would take? Amit, I'll ask both of you actually.
You want to go
Ritu, you
first?
want to go first?
Okay. So I think, Anu, I think it's a very valid question to start with. My experience now in the last 8-9 years is each and every skill that you have is 200% transferable. There is nothing that you've done is not transferable to this sector. In fact, it's needed more than ever, right? And in the corporate world, like Amit was saying, you were saying that, you have skills which are developed of saying, how do you build processes? How do you bring some institutionalization? How do you build teams? How do you build scale? How do you build stakeholder engagement? How do you build communication to build more stakeholder engagement? All of those skills are needed. And most of the people, as Amit said, they had a personal connect with the cause, at least most of the founders. And hence they have generally good understanding of the domain or the community that they're working in. Hence, you bring very complementary skills in terms of building an institution in each of these areas. So I think there are many ways to look at it. One could be if you just divide the sector into, say, even 4 broad categories. Do you want to be, there are implementation partners, there are people who bring in the money, and there are investment bankers, there are other who are consultants who are going to advise either side and play that mediation role, and probably a 4th category who are most the impact measurement people. 5th could be within the implementation partners, there could be facilitators and different roles, right? So you have to see where do you fit in as the organization first. Everybody is needed. And also, I think then the 3rd parameter to see is why are you doing it? Again, go back to yourself. Are you doing it because you want to play on your strengths? I have been a CFO. I don't want to be a CFO in telecom, but I'm okay and I'm comfortable to be a CFO in a different industry. Or I'm done being finance. I don't even want to see numbers. And I want to just explore something totally different. That's also an option. Just knowing that will probably help you prepare with the challenges even more, the scale or where you would enter the system a little bit more. If you're making 2 or 3 changes at the same time, industry, role, strengths, then obviously your curve will be very different from saying CFO to CFO, CXO to CXO. So I think that would be my 3 kind of pointers to say, how do you look at it? But please, Amit.
Amit?
No, completely agree, Ritu. See, social sector is always looking for good talent. And so I can give this assurance as a part of the sector that we welcome folks from corporate world with both the arms open. So yeah, there's a lot of things people from corporate world can offer. And in my transition, when I talk to different entities, I had this experience, and at the nudge also. Let me talk about the evaluation criteria we have, which will give you a bit of a comfort. Yeah, so we have this evaluation criteria, what we call KCAS, which is A stand for attitude. So are you ready for social sector? Do you have the intent? Can you roll up your sleeves? Yeah. Are you humble to listen and things like that? That's actually the number one skill, and it's not. Trust me, guys. It's a we have to let so many great candidates go because they fail to pass that first test. Yeah. Second, as first, then S stands for smarts, raw smarts. We want to look at your first principle thinking, your problem solving, stakeholder management and stuff like that. These are very function agnostic skills, which we all learn in our professional careers. Third comes skill. And 80% of the times we take a punt on person. I'm one of those, by the way, for the nudge, that they take the punt on the person that looks like that he doesn't have those skills, right? But since first two things are checking out, person will pick that up, right? So that's why your functional, the kind of background and so on doesn't quite matter that much. Yeah. So we have this framework. Other entities I talked to, they had similar framework. Yeah. So that's from the sector standpoint. What did help me, and that's the way I look at it, like Ritu said, there are 4 or 5 kind of verticals. So, figure out what is the way for you to segment the segment, so to speak. Yeah. So there can be, cause you relate to, there can be certain kind of entities, and ILSS program will help unravel that. Yeah. So you will see the, so if I can take a lingo of the corporate world, cause is a vertical. Yeah, industry vertical, right? And the kind of entity you're talking about is a horizontal. You see, where do you fix in the matrix? So
Yes,
that's how I'll approach it.
And I know I'll just add one to Amit's. There are 200 of ILSs who have taken that punt in there as well. So people know now, ये कुछ तो कर लेंगे. आता नहीं लेकिन कुछ कर लेंगे. घुस के कुछ तो करेंगे. Fight मारेंगे.
No, and I must tell you, Amit, when we started ILSS in 2018, I mean, we didn't exist in any, no, there was no brand, nothing. This was just an idea of reaching out to corporates. Didn't even know how to reach them. Quite frankly, I can't walk into a Gen Pact and say to the HR that, for people who might want to move out, can you give me an audience? Nobody's going to give me an audience. So we were trying all sorts of things, but the best advice I got from Ashish Dhawan, who's our anchor donor, and it was his ideas, ILSS actually, was that take 7 in the cohort. It doesn't matter, but get the right 7. And I remember feeling liberated because you chase numbers, you'll get people. And that first group of people, and Ritu will know those copious essays that we would make them write. And I remember rejecting a very senior person from, I won't take the name of this global company, but he was so arrogant. And, I could ill afford to turn him down. He used to make headlines in newspapers. It would have been a big one for me, but he was so arrogant. And I remember saying, hey, I'm not a gatekeeper for the social sector, but at ILSS, this won't work. If you think you're above and beyond everything and you're like the savior landing on the sector, you're going to probably really figure out that nobody's asked you to be here. So while there is a need for lots of talent, there is a great deal of respect we have for the work that happens here, and you have to approach it with respect. So that's why I double click on what you all are saying, this humility and listenability and learnability. That attitude is really critical to be able to, succeed, I think, to be able to, navigate the space. So I'm going to, we want to open it up for questions to the audience as well. So if you all have questions, you can put it in the chat box, or you can, everyone can tell you how to do that. I will just ask 1 or 2 more questions, and then I will allow you all to ask questions. Amit, this is for you. It's been now what, about 7-8 months for you? It probably feels like 7 years, or probably 700 years. What keeps you going? sometimes the lows can be pretty frustrating. And, there is always a given. The given is always that you have made those family choices. Your family has to support them. You're taking a pay cut. It's a lifestyle change in so many ways. When it's frustrating, what keeps you going? I mean, what is it that keeps you going?
I have it's a great question. It does happen. It does happen on daily basis. So it's very, very important for me to have my support system. Yeah. I have a very strong support system at the Nudge. I have a very strong support system at ILSS. Yeah. Uh, I have a few friends whom I can talk to. Yes, that's needed. I've been lucky to have a good rapport with folks I work with. I know that if I'm frustrated and I can yell at Atul and he'll be okay with that. So,
Great.
Yeah,
He really is
so
quite an incredible leader.
yeah, he is definitely. So, and Sudha and Rohit and John. So that support system is there. Yeah. So you have that psychological safety, so to speak. Yeah. People, that's number one. Number two is that for the support system to work for me, I need to open up. I need to be vulnerable. I need to tell them that, this is what I'm struggling with. And help comes. Yeah. So that's number one. I think that's very, very important to find that initially. Family should be completely on board. Swati and I moved to Gurgaon, to Bangalore from Gurgaon, and my side of the family and her side of the family, both are in Delhi.
Yeah.
And so that alignment is needed that, we are going to make that transition. And she agreed to come to Bangalore for my sake, and she has been very supportive. So that family buy-in and support has been very, very important. Then I was talking to Manish Thir, who is our board member, by the way. So Manish told me that, Amit, yaar, saaton din naj ka kaam mat kiya karo. Not that I'm scaring anybody away. We are not doing it. So I said, yaar, weekdays में आपके कैलेंडर बिजी होते होंगे. But he was asking, क्या करते हो वीकेंड पे? यार मनीष 5 दिन तो लगा रहता हूँ. वीकेंड पे सोचता हूँ थोड़ी पढ़ाई कर लूँ, ये तो सेक्टर के बारे में कभी समझ में नहीं आएगा. He said, stop doing that. You need to at least carve some time out when you're not thinking about your night work. And that's what helps me to keep my sanity.
Interesting. Ritu, the same question to you. What keeps you going? It's been a long journey for you.
I know, but a lot of things are very similar, Anu. Like what he's saying, the family support. I moved my family from London to India because I wanted to work for an impact space. And I took 2 years to say, from a 2-income family, can we sustain a 1-income family? And till we got that confidence, we didn't move. So the family has to be on board. When family is on board, still some people will continue to hate you. My mother hates me for leaving the corporate world. She said, "Meri puri zindagi ki mehnat waste kar diya. Maine kahan bheja, kahan se aa gayi." So you might have some family support, but you have to accept it's your journey. So you're not going to. But I agree with Amit in a sense. The biggest thing you need to find in this sector is a community and a support system. Is there a group who will bring you out when you are feeling like, kuch nahi ho raha hai, I'm wasting time, nothing is shifting, nothing is changing? Because the problem is very complex. You might not even to see it in your generations, but it will move. Your aspirations of the sector are probably where this generation will just make a very small shift for the next generation to see some benefit. But that needs a different level of personal transformation as well. So finding the cohort is very, very critical. And, probably that's what I found in ILSS. So my journey of ILSS was after a few years of transition, because in the early days, as you said, there were very rare and very few corporate people who had transitioned. So I almost felt I had no community. किसको जाके रोएंगे? वो बोलेंगे यार तुमने अपनी मर्जी से किया. What are you complaining about? What the hell are you looking for?
Love marriage, like your love
Exactly,
marriage.
like love marriage. So for me, the biggest, I had other things that I gained from ILSS, but I also gained a community who was invested in my success. It wasn't seeing what I deliver to the organization. It was, is Ritu settled in the sector? I would give a call, I would get a call, Anu or my cohort, which I'm very close to. How are you doing? I hear you're changing or you're a little bit struggling. How can I help? So for the first time, I found a community. And then I really found a community again in Piramal. Some of them have become very, very dear friends and people I can call at any hour. So I think I totally agree with Amit. If everything else, spend a lot of time to have a conversations before you join any organization. Can you even spend some time together to brainstorm, to share, to be vulnerable, to have chai, to say kya bol raha hai, to really kick asses each other? If you can't do that, that's a wrong organization, because there are no clear-cut solutions. You can't say, I need this tomorrow. And I mean, there is professionalism, but as we are saying, you need to know people at a deeper level. What drives them? What drives you? Can you engage with each other at that level? And I think I found that both in grilling ILSS 14 hours days and then continuation of what we did in the classroom. And then I find that in Piramal as well.
It's interesting. I just realized while you all were speaking that both Atul and Aditya were our chief guests when we were launching ILSS in 2017, end of 17, in Bangalore and in Delhi. So the first event we did was in Delhi, and we were like, who should we call? Who's also a crossover? I mean, Aditya had a shorter stint in the corporate world before he crossed over, but he was in the corporate world and then crossed over. And Atul had a slightly longer corporate career before he crossed over. And we reached out to them, unknown organization, but they were very gracious, and they were actually the keynote speakers for Bangalore and Delhi for us. Just one of the strange coincidences. I know that it's time up. Evian is sending me private messages. I can see the questions also adding up. But just one last question before I hand over to Evian to take it forward. Any piece of advice you would give to the audience, anything that you surprised you or you just feel like needs to be said, that about the whole, the sector is also changing. And while people say that sometimes things it might take a generation to shift. I mean, we've seen shift. My mother was just recently, she's in her 80s, talking about how she went to, her house got the first electricity. And I'm thinking, wow, 80 years ago is when that happened. It just seems so bizarre that my mom didn't have electricity when she was a kid. But so I feel very optimistic, and I do feel like you have to be an optimist to be in the sector, otherwise the enormity of things can get to you. But any last advice from that I'm asking you, then I'm going to open it up. Amit and Ritu, any piece of advice you'd like to give people who are exploring, thinking, mulling, and almost like, yeah, if you have this kind of issues, then don't come. That's also fine. There may be certain people the sector isn't for, and that's fine too. Anything?
Yeah. Amit, go ahead.
Well,
in the honeymoon phase, we'll have better things.
One, I'll say that if one is coming to slow down or retire or something, please don't come to the social sector. Second thing, think of any senior level transition in the corporate world. It is always difficult. First few quarters are challenging. Multiply that complexity and challenge by 10 times. That's what you're looking at. So don't be in any false pretense. Initial few months are going to be a big struggle.
Well said, Amit. Absolutely. Ritu?
So since he's said all the negatives, I'll be more optimistic. So I 100% agree with what he said. I think if you're ready for an adventure, just jump in. Just absolutely jump in. I mean, I said my mother hates me, but my husband has fallen in love with me all over again. He said, you've evolved to be somebody that I could never imagine to be, because it was a very linear life. I can problem solve at a drop of a hat with no resources now. And I can engage with anybody. I can pick up a phone and I have no hesitation at all. I'm a professional beggar. I'm a professional connector. So, I mean, so I would say if you have even a slightest jump in, but don't self-doubt if it doesn't work. Just take it as an adventure, even if it takes 3 different organizations for you to find your home, be it. Take it as an internship you never had. Just take it as a break year, whatever it's called, gap year. At least I never had the luxury to do that. Do it now. Enjoy that luxury if you have it, with keeping what he's saying. It's not going to be like aap jaoge aur kuch masti hoga, but a different adventure, a transformed you, an evolved you, and the kind of people you will meet, you will be hugely inspired as well. So keeping that in mind, I will still say jump in.
And it's interesting, I had one of my ILSS alum once tell me, oh, people are very smart here. Like the understatement of the year. They're very smart. Go ahead, Evian, over to you.
Thank you, Anu. We've got quite a few questions to go through, so I'm going to be as quick as possible. How do you look at the impact of your work? Or to put it differently, what gives you the satisfaction of having made a difference in the world? That's to both of you.
See, most satisfaction you get when you meet end beneficiaries, when you see their life change. And that's as real as it gets. So, you have your own, of course, you have, so in my case, there are program level KPIs and governance and everything like we have in the corporate world. So that gives satisfaction when things are going at the right pace. It gives satisfaction when we unleash a huge amount of government welfare scheme through our programs and so on. So these successes always give motivation, but I try to be on the field as frequently as possible and meeting those people and seeing that smile on their face. That gives satisfaction, and that gives a sense that gives sense of some achievement.
I'm a deal maker. So, the moment I sign somebody gives me a big check, I'm like, yes, now we have a lot of people to make that happen. So I agree with Amit. I like touch, but considering I'm beyond the honeymoon period, I'm on like, where is my bread and butter to sustain it? So I'm a Selu. So, but yes. And it's very hard to see it every day. That's what I guess Amit was mentioning, that challenge to see it even every quarter or every year. So that's why I again come back to really, really do a lot of self-care before you jump in. That will be my only advice, just which we're not trained to do in corporate world. How do we, yeah.
So the next question is by Deepak Majitia. He's actually applied for the 17th edition of the leadership program, and he's the cohort, so we're excited to see him. His question is, what are the top 2 or 3 challenges you and your respective organizations face in achieving your goals?
Number 1, talent. Number 2, talent. Number 3, talent.
Ritu, do you face the same problem?
Absolutely. Talent is a huge challenge for sure. And I think it's getting much better. So I'm optimistic like Anu. But I think a lot of problems need collaboration, a lot of collaboration, because they are very intertwined problems. Only when you solve one, the other one gets solved. So the trend is changing, but people holding their ground, or as he calls his theory of change, and not coming together to only look at as a problem as a system, is also a sector that needs a little bit more evolution.
Okay. So the next question is by Asitava Sen. What are the critical do's for the onboarding organization to ensure a smooth transition for a crossover candidate? So the perspective from the other side.
This is a great question, and I'm also keen to know, because I realized, I'm going to just jump in here, and we did this masterclass with Govind Iyer of Egon. I mean, Amit, you know him, SVP. Govind was talking about how forward integration, and that's for corporate world, right? How you support them in the first six months of sort of getting into the culture and stuff. And I thought this is in the corporate world that they are creating these toolkits for people to succeed, assimilate, etc. The social transitioners need it like 10 times over, because it's absolutely a different space. So while we are thinking at ILSS how to really create that after listening to Govind, what is it that at Piramal and Nudge, these are both organizations that have, shown a very evolved way of handling senior leaders. So what is it that they do that is a good process of integration?
Go ahead, Amit. It must be fresh
Yeah,
for you.
so sure. So see, one suggestion, if I may give, is refrain from reaching conclusion and importing solutions for first few months. Yeah, just listen, understand the organization, understand people, understand programs. Go meet, depending on the kind of organization one joins. Go meet end beneficiaries to understand the things first. Yeah. Uh, there's always a bit of an urge for all of us to start taking actions. So just don't do that. Uh, Please negotiate with the organization you're joining that first few months there would not be any kind of quarterly target for you, if you will, right? So you understand, you are just absorbing things. So that's very, very important. However, reality also is, I know that at least at the Nudge, because there's a paucity of talent, and we are growing at the pace we are growing. When we hire someone senior, we can hardly ever afford not to have some work for that leader to do in the first quarter, right? So we don't like to throw anyone at the deep end at the beginning, but that's the reality of the business. Yeah. So you'll be thrown at the deep end of the business, unfortunately. But then you will falter, you will fail, you will make mistake, you will be resource crunched. Don't judge yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. That's the way it was supposed to be. Yeah, and people will help you. So those are some of the things I'll say are very, very important for smooth onboard.
All right. The next question is by Banu Prabhakar, who's somebody who's studied public policy, very interested in healthcare, and also very interested in the ILSS Leadership Program. So what are some of the key trends that you've seen develop during your time in the social sector so far? And what do you think are the major ones to watch out for in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'd also like
I
to
don't think I qualify for that. Sorry, go on.
So Ritu, this is for you because you've been there, I've been there. What are you seeing that's shifting? Do you see more funding? Do you see organizations, evolving in a certain way? From your vantage point, what would that be?
So quite a few trends, Anu, in a positive direction. One, I mean, coming up of the organization's likes of ILSS to say, how do you help the transition of the talent? Just that itself is a way different from saying most organizations will be for the end beneficiary. And similarly, the donor side is evolving in 2 or 3 ways, right? And corporate world people will know more. Money drives a lot of change as well in how institutions work. So one, the money is shifting towards a lot of private equity wealth, a lot of institutional to money, high net worth individual wealth, and they demand a lot more efficiency, and they are okay, or their willingness and openness to invest in institutionalization of these NGOs, which was, even when I started, even to add half a head count to do a monitoring role was a big fight to have. Those fights are kind of overs. You're saying, okay, this organization can do this work, but for it to scale, we need to invest in building an institution to deliver this at scale. So I think how donors are looking at it, that's changing quite a bit. Again, a lot of collaboratives are coming in where you're realizing you can't do everything. Somebody has to come in as a donor, as a consultant, as a implementation, as a facilitator, as a knowledge partner, and those roles are getting defined. And that's where actually the corporate people play a very good role, because they're used to do these kinds of collaborators. It's like your home suddenly. It's like you can apply your skills almost immediately. You don't need to be any domain experts, because you're bringing in that domain expertise. And even in defining, I also think the community, the government is also now, at least in India, and I'm seeing now in Southeast Asia, it's not a fight. There is an acceptance that NGO sector brings value to help them deliver. So it's how is the question left? It's not why. So it has evolved from being a very activist agenda to how do you make together world happen. So government has become an important stakeholder in a impact as compared to against. It's a huge change. And AAP has done a great job of energizing the community. If, Delhi can, the bureaucracy and the political and the machinery as a whole can be aligned together, which is where the high scale impact can happen. A political mandate to bureaucratic impact, in mandate to NGO impact, all of them have a little bit of an alignment is at least possible in a lot of states.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Would you see that, Anu?
No, not only that. I mean, the fact that an ILSS it's a non-profit, it gets funding. Now, if somebody told me 10 years ago that there'll be some funding for a organization that brings corporates into the sector, it's counterintuitive. One wants to fund the poor child on the, that sort of thing. Why am I funding corporates coming in here? But it's a very strategic fund, because ultimately that's what's going to strengthen the work on the ground, right? So that's the hope. But this kind of philanthropy was unheard of even a decade ago, right? So philanthropy is also evolving. The funding is, organizations like us can get funds because even though we don't do the work on the ground. So I think all positive movements, mostly, yeah.
Absolutely. It's a sunshine industry right now.
I agree. Trespassers, when I was a part of the IT enabled services way back, and Pramod Bhasin, who was the head of GenPact, there was a thing that trespassers will be recruited then. And I feel like it's the same in the development sector today. If you have talent and you have, come with good skill sets and attitude, there are huge opportunities here.
And some of the philanthropists, to add, likes of, Ashish and few more, also the salary packages, it's not a job for a secondary job. You can have a career in the impact space. It's not always being.
You don't have to have become bald. So you can work with a slight hair trim. Things are getting better that way. I've seen that journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry.
Thank you, Ritu. I think we have time for just one more question. So this is from Ritika Dubey, who used to work in corporate, moved into the sector about 4 years ago, and is looking at the program as something to help her engage with it in a more prolonged fashion. Can you elaborate a little more on why it is difficult to find the right fit in the social sector? What were the challenges in your journey in finding this fit, and what made you stay on in your present organizations?
Do you think it helps to volunteer a little bit first?
So that was my journey, Anu, that I definitely volunteered for it.
You want to avoid having some heartburn in your journey. What would those be?
So if I share, Anu, mine was, yes, I did volunteer. That helped me to even identify for myself what are my transferable skills? Where do I feel confident? Again, coming back to, it's not the sector, it's really about a little bit more about the self-work that is needed to see where you fit in. And then navigating it, okay, this is what I want to do, and hence, this is the organization I want to join. Amit can elaborate. And then the second, I think for me, like Kotler used to be for retail, location, location, location. For me, it's people, people, and people. That's it. The magic happens when you find the right people to work with. So do not fill forms. Just go out and meet. Insist on meeting. My biggest challenge in few roles that I didn't last is my immaturity to not ask for those critical meetings, which were absolutely critical for me to have that face-to-face interaction. And I hugely corrected that in Piramal and on the other side as well. And it took much longer, but that's fine. So it's absolutely just people, people, people. Just talk. Just have a lot of conversations.
Amit?
Completely agree, both the points. Same with me. SVP helped me. That was my beginning of volunteering. Not full time, but at least part time. That was number one. Meeting a lot of people, talking to a lot of people in the sector, like Ritu said, that helps. Social sector interviews, by the way, my experience has been most effective interviews are when candidate is asking more questions. So use that time to ask as many questions as possible. Transition is steeper from your side, change is steeper from your side. So use that opportunity conversation to ask thoughtful questions. And then that's how I found it.
All right. So thank you all very much. I think I'll give it to Anu to give the quick thank you now.
Thank you. Don't you want to present the last slide on your when is the next day for the program?
Yes, so he's just doing that. He's just doing that.
Oh, okay. But really, thank you so much, Amit and Ritu, for coming here and giving us this time and sharing your valuable insights. For us, our alumni are our multipliers out there. And really, to your point, sometimes I don't know if who celebrates more the milestones, us or the people actually achieving their like the whole ILSS. I don't know if ILSS, all ILSS, because Ravi went, then he hired from us. And I don't know if Ravi and all Jalpa was celebrating as much as we were celebrating because we just thought it was so phenomenal. But thank you so much for giving us time and being here with us. And over to you, Evian, for the last notes.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Amit. And thank you to everyone who attended this session. A quick note, we do have 2 programs running this year. One is the residential program taking place this August, and the other is the virtual program starting in September, which will last for about 11 weeks. Feel free to contact us should you be interested in learning more about the program. Our details are provided on the next slide. And yeah, so looking forward to hearing from you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anu. Thanks, Evian.
Thank you.
Nice to be with you, Amit. Thanks, Divya.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here, Anu. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, thank you for inviting, Anu.
Our pleasure entirely. Thank you so much.